Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. This episode we have Netflix 159th film from 2019. It's the Indian Hindi language comedy drama called Chopsticks. This is directed by Sachin Yardi and it stars Abhay Deol, Mithila, Palkar and Vijay, Raaz. I am Jesse and I am here with MJ. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. I actually haven't done a foreign language film for a while. I think I missed a few when I went on my little break. And I think since I've been back, there's probably like two that I've missed just through being busy. And at least one of them was a foreign language film. So I'm back with the Indian films. Netflix loves their Indian films.
They sure do. And this is one that I probably wouldn't have watched again as usual. I remember when it came out because I reckon, put together the list of the films we're going to do. And that title Chopsticks really stood out when I was like, what on earth would this be about? So I'm excited to get into the chat about this one.
All right. I like the sound of that. And you're right. Yeah, it's we've had titles where we're like, I'm never going to remember that title. And we get to the podcast and we're like, what was that movie called again? So, all right, we'll give them Chopsticks. It's all right.
We start off with our fast flicks, our quick little summary of the film. What's your fast flicks for Chopsticks?
It is. An innocent and naive young lady has her car stolen and enlists the help of a dodgy yet savvy man to help get it back.
I like that. That's very IMDb-ish.
It's awful. It's so...
I struggled with this one as well. I've just said it's a friendship is formed to find a stolen car, but there may be more to discover along the way.
Yeah, that's nice. That is nice because it's so easy to do what I did. And because this, we'll get into it. I'm not going to talk about it now because I'm just going to say things that I want to talk in more depth. But yeah,
we'll put it out there now. We're probably going to spoil this film. So if Chopsticks is on your watch list and you haven't seen it, give us a pause. Come back later on because we'll talk about this film in a bit of detail because I don't think a lot of people have seen it anyway, so it's not really going to matter. But if you did want to watch it, give us a pause. So, what have you been able to find?
That people are coming to the podcast because they have listened, they have watched this film. They're like, I want to hear people talk about Chopsticks. I've seen it. So
yes, exactly.
Well, those people are right then. Yeah, exactly.
Well, fill us in on what you could find out about how this film came to our screens.
This is probably my worst effort in potentially since we've been doing the podcast at actually trying to find information. And I don't know if I half-assed it a little bit too much, but I don't find anything about this film. All I can tell you is that they had the trailer come out in May and then the film was then released at the end of May. That's like seriously all I've got for you. And I had a look around. There's a few bits and pieces about the history or the making of the film, but not about like Netflix's involvement, unless I just missed it. Whether they struck a deal with a production company or whatever like that. I'm actually not too sure, but I have to assume that maybe Netflix was on board from the start because I saw some interviews with the main actor in the film, and he was sort of talking about the difference between working on independent films that get released in cinemas versus the fact that you've got a digital online streaming worldwide platform to work with, and how appealing that is, particularly for Indian films. But apart from that, Jesse, I can't tell you much about how this film was made.
Well, your assumptions have worked out well because you're 100% on track. Where unlike the other Indian films that we have covered, like Lust Stories and Love Per Square Foot, they were acquired by Netflix. So they were made and then Netflix picked them up. Whereas you are 100% correct where Netflix was actually involved from the scripting stage for this one. So yeah, this is officially the first Netflix original Indian film that was both produced and distributed by Netflix. So that was in an interview with the director that I saw. So on the ballpark there, good work with that.
Good work. I thought that Music Teacher and another one that we did might have even been Brij Mohan. I feel like they were acquired from the start as well because I read something that said this is the first produced Netflix original.
Possibly the language difference, like they're in Tamil, possibly.
Right.
And
okay.
I think this is in. I think that was the difference between them. Where this is Hindi. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was the difference. So the first Hindi.
Okay.
Original. I could be wrong
read
there,
that, and I just chalked it up as someone. Yeah. You might be right. I chalked it up as someone being Well, you obviously haven't done a podcast on the film, so you don't know how many other Indian films that Netflix has done. Because I know a lot of them have been acquired, but then I know that Music Teacher specifically they did a deal with the production company to acquire a couple of the films, and Music Teacher was the second one, so they were on board a year before it was even made. So, but that's
Correct.
interesting. Good to know.
I reckon we've probably got the best knowledge of Indian Netflix original films out of anyone going around, to be honest. So no one can argue with us.
Let's be fair. Probably anyone, maybe in Australia. Well, I think it's fair to say that the Indian community probably has more of an idea about it than we do.
Yeah, bring me back down. That's fine. So let's
just show a bit of modesty.
The translations for this one, there's a couple of good ones for this that I saw in international markets. So the worldwide Spanish title for this one was called Teamwork, which I don't mind. That's not too bad a title. And then we sort of moved on. Brazil called it A Cheetah of Good, which is an interesting interpretation of the film. And my favorite was from Vietnam. And in Vietnam, they called this the Synergy Couple, which I as we talk a bit later on, I'm not 100% sure I'd classify them as a couple, but sure, we can go with that title.
A couple doesn't have to be romantic. Like it's just a couple.
True. All right. Well, the tagline for this one, did you see the tagline?
I saw it accidentally. I saw it when I was on IMDb, and it's in big words on the poster.
So it's shit just goat real, because a goat plays an important part in this film.
I'm going to say I like that tagline. I think the tagline actually ties in really nicely to the tone of the film. It's having fun. Obviously, you're dropping a big swear word in there on the tagline, so you know exactly who you are. And I was actually pretty happy with that one.
Me too. The only other thing I've got here is that the credits, I stayed right till the end, and it comes up with a big title card at the end of the credits saying that this program contains product placement. So I'm guessing that's something that you need to include in films. My guess, it didn't say what companies they're talking about, but I think that opening scene with Hyundai, it was probably what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and like that was when the product placement is still very much part of the story, it works a lot better. Like they're completely leaned into the fact that that they need to get a car, right? So they might as well do a deal. And this car, they're going to get heaps of exposure. That's natural exposure. We're not just showing the car because we need to show a logo of, like when you're watching TV, especially in Australia, watching a bit of SAS Australia, one of the few TV shows I do watch, you'd see them driving in a car and then like a big bang Land Rover, just a logo of the Land Rover just going past the screen. So it felt a little bit more organic with this.
Good. Well, time to talk about the feedback from this one, I guess, and what are the critics and the audiences saying about this film?
Yeah, the two platforms I always look at, Jesse, as you know, are IMDb and Letterboxd, and I think it's worth saying that these are probably very westernized platforms. So we've got a 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb, only 4,500 ratings, but again, I don't think that's necessarily reflective of the amount of audience that actually has watched this, because we're probably not getting a lot of the Indian community who watch this film. They're probably not jumping on IMDb or Letterboxd. So that's only where I can sort of say that I want to take those numbers with a bit of trepidation. The 6.5 out of 10 is a good enough sample size, so it's a really good score. 2.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd, just over 800 ratings. That's a really, really low amount of ratings. But again, I don't think it's necessarily saying that no one watched this film. It just means that maybe a lot of Western countries haven't watched this film. People in Western countries haven't watched this film.
Yep, agree. The other one, obviously, is our favorite, Rotten Tomatoes. This sits on 17%. Very, very low. It's only on 6 reviews. So it is rotten, but the audience had it completely different. The audience had it at 77%. So that was a bucket that's standing up on Rotten Tomatoes, but again, it's on less than 50 reviews. So not a huge sample size.
And we know, obviously, that you're being sarcastic when you say our favorite Rotten Tomatoes, but if you're listening for the first time, I don't want people to think that we think Rotten Tomatoes is the gospel on this, because we don't like it.
Sorry, I just assume everyone knows I'm the most sarcastic person going around. My bad. All right, let's talk about our early thoughts. Where are we going with this one? What are you thinking?
This was a weird film, but it was cute in its own way. but more on the weird side, I'll be honest, because in 45 minutes, all that had happened was she'd asked a guy for help to get her stolen car back, and he'd asked another guy to keep an eye out. And that was the first 45 minutes. I was just, nothing was happening. The last 20 minutes was a little bit of a saving grace, I think. And if you pitch it as this cute, quirky film, you can potentially avoid the question of why was this story actually made into a film. So it was okay. It was just a bit weird.
I agree. There's quite a bit of weirdness to this, and like it's an okay film. There's some good moments. There's some real lame stuff in here. To me, the main character Nirma frustrated the living daylights out of me. It's just really hard to think that there's anyone in the world that's actually like that. So that frustrated me, but I mean, it's nothing new, but it's still an acceptable watch. Like it's not something that I'm cringing at the whole time.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right, well, let's talk about some characters. Start us off with Nirma.
Yeah, well, you sort of said it. So Nirma, I think she almost gets away with it. What you said about, does anybody like that actually exist? She's super adorable. She's super naive, and she's super innocent. And they set that up really well. Like I think that this is just someone who is just really, really innocent and has no confidence in herself. And whilst you kind of root for her, maybe mainly out of sympathy, as you said, she's really frustrating to get behind because she does things that are just basically setting herself up for failure and then getting surprised that she fails. But again, the positive of all this is that you can enjoy her story arc or her character arc because she learns confidence and she learns to back her own convictions, which I think they probably were there all along. She has the right convictions, but then she just sort of starts to take control of it and take control of her own life. So in a sweet, cute, simplistic way, it's easy to get behind her and where she goes from start to finish.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with you on those sentiments about the idea of her actually taking control in the end, because it kind of did frustrate me that this was almost set up as like this damsel in distress character where needs to be saved by a male or needs the male to get what she needs. So I really didn't like her. I just found her really unlikable, and like the whole idea about being named after washing powder. I mean, I'll talk about it in some scenes. At times I hated it. At times I found it funny. So it was really hit and miss with where that was at. And the whole idea of like, I don't think she was actually paying this artist dude. And there was this one moment where they hold hands and it's like, oh, are they turning this into a romance? And that was like literally it. And I think that, there's no romantic connection. She sucks at work. Her relationship with her mum doesn't sound very good. She's got no friends and she can't use chopsticks. So she doesn't have much going for her.
Hey, she doesn't suck at work. She just lacked the confidence to take on the bigger jobs. And by the end of it, she had that confidence. But she was. Yeah, but you know what? She wasn't disappointed with her lot in life.
No, she was happy to just sit at her home and fall asleep at the table and wake up and contemplate life. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about the artist. Fill me in on the artist.
I was actually pretty into artist, like in the sense that I think he brought this charisma and mystery when the movie was really going nowhere. And whilst that direction never really took off for the film, I think there was certainly something about him that kept me interested that something might happen. So I think that's a real pass for this character. I'm still a little bit confused by his backstory. I'm not sure. Is he a criminal that's actually hid from the law, or is he just a guy who's really skillful at breaking locks and has a lot of dodgy connections? And did he try and open up a restaurant that failed and now he just lives in the abandoned building? But he's obviously still a registered caterer of sorts. Like, I don't quite understand his whole story.
Yeah, I really liked like those cooking elements to his life, like and I was going to say I really liked what these elements brought to the table. It was just I just thought that I just thought that they were nice little moments that were put throughout, and obviously he's got those dodgy sides to him, and I mean, and living in that dump, but he spent all that money on the kitchen. It was sort of a bit like if you're a criminal mastermind and you're breaking safes and getting all this cash, just do up the whole apartment. Like, don't just worry about the kitchen.
Well, that's why I thought that maybe it was supposed to be a restaurant that he was going to open up, and he did the kitchen. Then he like ran out of money or couldn't do something, and he just like, oh, I'm just going to live in the rest of this rut and then have me kitchen. I don't know.
That would make sense. Yeah, but I thought he was really, really cool, smooth, and I really liked him too.
Good. I'm glad.
Is there anyone else that you wanted to talk about?
I've got the bad dude. I think his name was Fayaz Bai, but I didn't pick that up when I was watching. But that's probably on me.
Yep.
I really don't know what to say about him. I just feel like I should say something about it because the scenes that were with him felt really odd and misplaced. And even though I knew that he was there to set up some sort of proper, issue for the main characters, otherwise they were just searching for a stolen car for 100 minutes. But like, all they really set up is that he's a bad man and he loves his goat. And then by the end, I guess Nirma instills some love into him that makes him realize how much he loves his goat. That could be the weirdest character analysis I've ever given. But I think they just set up the guy like, hey, this guy's a bad man. And then by the end, it's like, but he's got some good traits because he loves his goat. Like that's kind of all I'm getting out of him.
I agree. I think that, they set him up as that stereotypical villain, but you probably don't need like a lot of good movies that have that type of villain. You just have these quick, short, like shots of the villain sitting in a chair or, stroking the cat on it, or could stroke his goat or something like that to add to the humor of this. Whereas, that whole side story with the singer that he's like torturing and getting him to sing on, it wasn't really needed. Like it didn't really add anything to the main protagonist that we were following. So, and I'm not 100% sold on that whole turnaround in the last 20 seconds of him deciding that he's got a heart. I think that was a little bit of a cop out just to quickly finish the film, because I did look at the film and I was like, there's only like 8 minutes to go and there's no resolution in sight. And I was like, oh, okay, there we go, bang, it's done. Oh, goodness.
I did like, obviously he gave her the car back and that's really nice. But the thing that really got me is when he's like, I can't remember the goat's name now, but he's like, he's not fighting anymore. He's like, I actually love this goat. This goat's kind of like the most important thing in my life.
Oh, goodness. Did you pick up anything on the director, Sachin Yardi?
So I'm going to read a direct quote because I read an article by Akil Arora from Gadgets 360 Degrees, because I didn't know anything about Sachin Yardi. And he mentions here in this article, if you were to look up Chopsticks writer and director Sachin Yardi before you sat down to watch this film, it would not inspire confidence for what you're about to watch, let alone tempt you to hit the play button. Yardi's credits include scripting the 2005 adult comedy Kaya Cool Hi Hum and helming its 2012 sequel Kaya Super Cool Hi Hum, and directing 2008 K Company, which he wrote with the Chopsticks co-writer. All three films were panned by critics, with the aforementioned two also taken to task for their abhorrent treatment of LGBT characters and community at large, making light of rape and sexual assault and the use of racial slurs. All that was naturally in addition to Bollywood's all too frequent use of female stars as sexy lamps. So that's who he was before Chopsticks.
Wow. And that, like, I didn't go into as much detail as that. I looked at so obviously a bit of writing and on IMDb, it has the posters for those films that you've mentioned. And literally you can see that they're those types of raunchy comedies that you've mentioned. So it doesn't surprise me. That's a little bit of a disappointing thing to hear about poor old Sachin.
Yeah, and so in a sense, he's come around really nicely on this film. He's seen the light and he's back on the right course.
Yeah, I think apart from like a couple of F-bombs, there's very little that would offend in this. There's no nudity, there's no so it's a big change up from what you've mentioned.
And the swearing in this is actually really well placed and fits really nicely and is done quite tastefully.
Yeah, it's to give a little bit more of an insight into the character of Nirma. So I guess we can talk now about some scenes that we liked in this one. What did you enjoy in this?
Yeah, it's weird. I've only got two in here and basically start and the end, but I really like the quirky opening sequence with the number plates. I think it was a really nice way to open me into a film that I knew nothing about. It was fun. We knew that this character obviously was a little bit eccentric in a way, but also she got pushed around pretty easily. But it was just a fun way to open it. I thought it was done really well to just capture your attention straight away.
Nice.
And then I had a bit of trouble with the rest of the film, but I thought, as I said in my opening, that the last 20 minutes was a bit of a saving grace. And despite some of the issues that may have actually happened, the final handover scene was pretty good. Seeing Nirma come around full circle, take that control, no longer be that damsel in distress, but also, as much of a cop out as it is, actually, come across to the bad guy and let him realize, this is what's happened. This is what you did to me. You took my car. Like, why did you take my car? That really hurt me. And that sort of spoke to him. So that was really good. And you know what? I love a scene in the rain. You get a scene in the rain right, I think it adds so much. So that was nice.
I think it's a common trope that we've seen. I think in Music Teacher, the same sort of thing happened as well. But
yes.
the rain in this, and I'll start off with my scene includes the rain. My first scene that I like in that at the start, like after Nirma's got home and she's been on the phone to her mum, and there's just this shot of her looking out the window at the empty car park spot, and I killed myself laughing. Yeah, and I was absolutely killing myself laughing. I thought that was the most funny shot I've seen, because I was just like,
she never actually even parked it there, because she hadn't even been home with it.
It was just like, oh, there's this poor girl. Oh man, that was really good. I mentioned before her being named after the washing powder, and some of them were woeful, but some of the lines I didn't mind. As the movie went on, I got into them a little bit, like, the day that she was born, she was named after it because her dad got a franchise, and I was like, that's hilarious. And I like the response where it's like, well, lucky your dad didn't get an iPhone that day. And then the other one was like,
it's terrible parenting.
And then at the end, the other good one was where Nirma had sort of come around and got her car back, and the artist sort of says, Nirma took everyone to the cleaners today. I thought that was good as well. There's a rooftop scene where they sort of talk about taking risks, and there's more options in life. And I thought the camera work, the crane work, or the drone work that they used on that was a really, really cool little technical element that they included. Really put me on edge as to how high up they were and that situation they were in. There was a scene where they're in the car together, Nirma and the artist, and she talks about overcoming her stutter, and a technique was to have balls in her mouth. I laughed at that too. I thought that was funny.
It was good, because I was wondering if there was going to be a bit of a cultural difference in what that meant, but artist had our back. He's like, yeah, look, where I come from, it's
I'm sort of a little bit disappointed that he followed that, because I was like, just leave it at that. That was good. And then at the end, where the food delivery dude rocks up at the bad guy's house with that sort of takeaway food, and it's labeled like all the goat names on the containers. That was I was like, that was funny. You like
that?
All right, what are some things that you didn't like?
I didn't like it when she sprayed the capsicum spray or whatever it was in her own eyes. Like, I know that she's a little bit a bit ditzy and things like that, but she's not a flat out idiot. Like, that was just an idiot sort of thing. The guy that was singing his favorite song was just weird. The first time it was weird. Like, the 3 times afterward, it just got worse every single time. And I know the whole thing was just like, this is a bad man. He makes people do bad things. Like, that was all they were trying to say, but it was so strange.
I've put that in there too, just because any scene with that singer just was painful and not funny. So I'll cross it off now, because I agree.
Yeah, good. When she went to what she thought was her car that had been taken away for parts, she stared at that screw for way too long. I reckon it was about 45 seconds. It was like a slow motion stare at the screw.
I didn't mind the emotion that we saw on the artist's face too in that scene. And I was like, oh, he's actually like got some, some positive feelings towards her. Then I think they, had another shot when she was back at home, still with that screw.
I'd already written it down too. I'm like, she stared at the screw for too long, and then it went to another scene, and it was back to her sitting at home with the damn screw. I similarly liked the rooftop scene that you mentioned. What I didn't like was the second time she went up to the rooftop. I just thought it was overly dramatic for what for where they were at and what she was trying to get across. It just didn't really work for me.
It was almost rushed too. It was like, it was just like a quick add in. Oh, we've made this comment earlier. Let's put her up there again. And then she quickly gets down and it's done. It was very rushed.
Yeah. And the final thing I've got in there is, I guess it's more of a question, but I think my brain was also like, this is ridiculous. I don't know why Animal Planet would be doing a story on fighting goats, like goats that humans make fight. That doesn't feel like an Animal Planet kind of territory to me.
It feels like a 60 Minutes inside or something, not a...
Yeah. So that was strange. That was very strange.
The dude too, I was very he seemed very he seemed a lot more Anglo-Saxon than the others, and then when he started talking, I couldn't work out where the take was for him either.
Nah, neither.
All right, you done?
Done.
All right. I thought the visual stickers and signs and things around the film throughout the whole film were woeful. Like one of the stickers on the car was one mistake, game over. I was like just trying to highlight where she was at. Like, oh, she's giving her car away, game over. Like there's no hope for her. When they get to that school, there was like a sign that said, when every child goes to school, no child is left behind. And it's like a sweatshop with all these kids that are like sorting coins. And the last one was like on this car. It said, take action if you dare. If not, endure. And I just thought that were the worst things to
it wasn't a very subtle performance by the director in that sense. But I also wonder, because they were sitting in the background, right? And we're reading subtitles. So we just got these massive words on the screen saying like, endure. And we're like, oh, that's pretty blatant. But I guess maybe if it's a little bit more. But it wasn't subtle at all.
No. And it sort of ties into that idea of her identifying her car because she's got a certain sticker on the car. So I get that, but it was just, and frustrating. The internet dude that kept coming to her house. Why?
I think it was because obviously she got scammed by the parking instructor or the parking dude, and this guy was going to scam her as well. And then you get to see the change in her a bit later on when she's just like piss off, cuts the cord, like you're not getting me. So that's what I got. But I was expecting more from that. I thought there was something else.
They could have taken that out easily, and we still would have got the development of that.
Absolutely.
The scene at Nirma's it's like a bar with her boss and the co-workers, that the music was so loud. It was so hard to hear what they were saying. And it was just a real, not a positive thing for me. I know that's a nitty picky thing. On
that point, this is what annoys me about when you're watching a film with subtitles and they speak in English and the subtitles go away. Like they just remove the subtitles completely, and it's like I didn't quite hear what you said. I don't know how to turn on subtitles, so it's subtitles in English the entire time.
I'll do. That's in my takeaway. Literally, it's happened before in international films that we've done. Yeah, you need English if you've got an English subtitles on, you need it the whole way through. Don't just take them out because they're speaking English. Because I could be deaf, and that's not helping me at all.
Yeah, that's why I'm watching.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my takeaway. So I'll be a bit quiet when we get there a bit later on.
Sorry, mate.
That's all right. There's a couple of lines that every lock has a heart, and I listened for the heartbeat of the lock. That was just the most corny, rubbish line I've ever heard in my life. And then another line here, and this is like the second time in a couple of movies where we had a poor joke about Jackie Chan. Nirma's sad, and the artist goes, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "Is Jackie Chan dead?" Oh, wow, poor Jackie Chan. That guy is a master of his style of film, and he's copping a bit the last few weeks. So
that was a very strange line.
It's very strange. Jackie Chan actually grew up in Australia. I don't know if many people know that. His parents, they moved to Canberra because his parents had like a government job. So he did a lot of study in Australia. Interesting fact. The last thing that I'll pop in here is the traffic jam scene. I mean, I just sort of put in like, and I didn't mind it because afterwards I was like, this guy is super cool. Like the ability for him to just do that and get the traffic jam undone. But looking back on it a little bit, it wasn't needed. Again, it's another scene that just wasn't needed because it doesn't add anything. We sort of get that this guy's cool based on him leaning against walls and smoking cigarettes in corridors and things like that. We don't need him to
rolling his own cigarettes.
Imagine trying to fix a traffic jam in bloody India. Like this guy must have some sort of superpower. Anyway, that's me.
I forgot about that scene. That's completely gone from my head. There you go.
All right. What was the film trying to say? What are some themes or ideas?
Yeah, I think there's this idea of confidence and conviction and backing yourself in, and obviously taking control of your own life and fighting and pushing yourself for what you believe in. I think Nirma does a lot of that by the end of it. I was a bit miffed initially when she quit her job. I kind of wanted her to fight for her job a little bit more and prove how good she is. But I guess they give you a little bit of that by her old employer seeing her and recognizing that she might have been, the one that got away. So that was sort of worked out all right, because she is sort of knows that she's good at her job. She's passionate about her job, and she kind of worked for it. But then there's also this idea of seeing good in others and recognizing right from wrong. And it's very literal in a sense that Nirma and Artist both sort of take things from each other and teach each other. But again, I'm going back to the scene with the bad guy, is that he does kind of see how he's impacted this girl and wants to change his own life in some respect after that as well.
Very hard to follow that. Just that whole idea of believing in yourself. You need to take risks in life sometimes and face life head on and give it a crack. And I think you've put that nicely. So I've already given my takeaway.
There's not too much more to talk about.
Nah, there's not. I've already given my takeaway where I want subtitles the whole way through. What's your takeaway from this one?
Well, the problem is I've wasted your takeaway section, and my whole thing is that I don't really have much to take away. I think maybe something along the lines of how you don't need to have an exciting plot to make a cute and quirky film about discovering yourself. But I do think there needs to be a little bit more than just cute and quirky. I think I need to connect more, and I think I need to feel more from a film for it to really work, if you're going to give me a plot about a stolen car.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make as well. Did you go onto IMDb to check anyone out at all?
I didn't go onto IMDb, but I did what you did and went somewhere else to find something out. I went on to Google and I typed in the Indian head wobble. It's quite prominent in this film where they do that little head wobble. And I'm not 100% sure if it means yes or no or what. So I found out, I've done some research. There is an array of head shakes and subtle variations in velocity, vigor, amplitude of the wobble that denotes different meanings, including yes, no, maybe, what's up, carry on. Most frequently, the Indian head wobble, which happens a lot in this film, it means yes, or to indicate understanding of something. But then you can also do an unenthusiastic head wobble that can be a polite way of declining something without saying no directly. So there's a lot in the Indian head wobble, like a lot of differences and changes that actually, which I find actually quite fascinating. It's something that you obviously just learn from birth, and you get to read other people's head wobbles.
That's great. That's really good. I feel like I've learned something today. That was I'll just wobble. What am I doing now? I know this is an audio podcast.
Well, we don't know. We don't have the intricacies, and I'm glad we don't record this.
All right. I didn't jump on at all, but we can lead into some questions. Are there any things that you wanted to ask about this?
Well, obviously, Artist had quite an impact on Nirma. He almost sort of functioned as a teacher in many ways. He saw it as his sort of duty to teach her certain things. How do you think Nirma impacts Artist?
It's a good question. I think that she probably re-emphasizes in his mind that there are good people in the world, and you can do or act or go about your life in a certain way that doesn't necessarily have to involve crime or violence or thuggery, because I think that acknowledgement was almost right at the end there, where she gets the keys back and you just get that shot of him at the end going, sort of like thanking the boss and thinking, okay, she's done this in a way that I probably wouldn't have. So maybe I can take that into my life moving forward.
I love that answer. I love it.
Yeah.
And I guess that translates into him wanting to go on a cooking reality show.
Yeah, that was a bit random at the end too, wasn't it?
It did show him taking a cleaner direction with his life.
Yes, that's super true. Good. Anything else?
No, that was it.
We sort of mentioned this before. So, he likes cooking. He's obviously okay with the money because he's able to give her money to go buy a new iPhone and buy a goat, all this sort of stuff. So, like, why hasn't he put some money into that rest of the house? Like, I just can't get past it. I can't get past it. Put some more cash into it.
I guess it's not a priority for him. He's got the kitchen. He doesn't care how he lives. He's got his little dog and he's sleeping on the floor. He's happy.
True. The other one here, there's a shot where Nirma goes back to her boss to officially make sure that she's resigned, and the boss, and they put this shot, the boss is shredding paper. Like, what was so important about the boss shredding paper? I don't know if it, I don't know what it meant.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's always like how everyone is disposable to me.
Okay, I'll take that. That's good. That's good.
It's a stretch.
What's with Ferrero Rochers? Are they like some sort of delicacy in India? Are they like, I don't know. Maybe I've missed the boat that they're an exceptional chocolate.
I just took it as their sort of Nirma's faves. I like it. Ferrero Rocher is really nice though.
Yeah, they're all right. They're not too bad, but yeah, sure. Okay. Last one. The train station at the end. I tried my best to try and work it out, and I couldn't find anything. Did that remind you of the train station in Slumdog Millionaire?
I was like, I hope he says Slumdog Millionaire here. Yeah, it definitely did, but
Okay,
I don't think it was the same. I think it was just symbolic of Indian train stations. Maybe that's, I don't know, probably super.
Because they have that line right at the start of the film where she's doing the tour with the tourists, and the locals are talking about, Slumdog Millionaire, it's brought all these tourists. So I thought it would have been a nice thing to actually use that same platform.
Yeah, interesting. Everyone may have. I don't think it was though, from memory.
I couldn't find anything. Yeah,
but I also think that comment was specific to the slums as well of India.
Well. Yeah, true. All right, well, I think we're ready to wrap it up, and we give the film a rating out of 5 to come up with an average. So let us know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, look, as I said, it's a funny old film, and I did appreciate its cuteness and quirkiness by the time it was finished. It did take me a while to get through it, though, and a few of the holes in the storytelling in general are still hard for me to look past. But I'm giving it a 2 stars. Nice.
Yeah, it's the type of film that you can sort of chuck on, and I know that it's got subtitles, but you don't have to think too hard about what's going on. It's pretty clear cut, and you know what the characters are like, and it's fairly sweet. There's no nudity. It's a pretty PG sort of film, except a couple of those swear words. And for me, that the artist is that standout. Without him as a character in this film, it would have fallen pretty flat, I think. So I'm giving it a 2.5, which gives us a 2.25, which isn't too bad.
Yep, feels good. I honestly would have been giving it a lot less, except for the last 20 minutes. I was watching it, like, what's going on here?
Yeah, like you mentioned at the start, the first part was just like very monotonous. I was like, we need to get somewhere quickly. We're on social medias. We've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, Instagram. Check us out if you can. Question that I want to put out is, can you use chopsticks? Good
question. I can use chopsticks. Can you use chopsticks, Jesse?
Very poorly. I give it a crack. Like, I'll definitely use them, but it does take me about double the amount of time to finish my meal if I'm using chopsticks. God, but
you're such a Nirma.
I am such a Nirma. Tell you what, I'm going to give my keys to the bum that lives out the front and see if he can park it for me. We are back again next week for another episode. Next week, we've got another international film. So we're 2 in a row. It's from 2019. It's a Spanish film. It's also a biographical romantic drama called Elisa and Marcela. It's directed by Isabel Coye, and it stars Natalia de Molina and Greta Fernandez. So we've got that one coming up next week.
Looking forward to something a little bit different. It looks like it's going to be a lot different to what we've done recently. So that'll be interesting.
I'm super keen for this one. Very keen. So yeah, that's what we've got next week. It's been nice to have a bit of a laugh. I feel like we've done a lot of serious films recently, so this was a good little breakup for a change.
Yeah, good call. And it was good to have a bit of a laugh at the film whilst talking to you about it.
Yeah, it was good. Well, thank you, and I will see you next week.